What's going on, guys? Just doing a quick update video. Just gonna jump right into it. Try to get this over with, make this video quick. Starting with the macro on SPY. Descending broadening wedge, broke it to the upside, retest, transitioning into an ascending triangle, claimed the triangle from the retest, broke out of the triangle to the upside. From that breakout, you see a gap up, and now we are trading in this horizontal channel, bouncing from 429.60 roughly to 426, just bouncing up and down in this horizontal channel. It looks very good. Horizontal channels are neither bearish nor bullish. Pretty much just waiting for a break. We know the direction already. It's going to break to the upside. Just waiting for that break to the upside. I'll get into that on the micro. Day 50 in a row, closing over the 200 EMA. Very bullish there. Golden cross on the daily on SPY is extremely bullish. This chart is very, very bullish. Nothing bearish about this whatsoever. It looks very good. SPY is going to new highs. Jumping into the macro on the 4-hour now. Same thing I just showed you. Descending broadening wedge, transitioning into an ascending triangle. Breaking the descending broadening wedge to the upside, retesting. Confirmed the retest, bounced, reclaimed the ascending triangle, and then broke the triangle to the upside. And that's pretty much it for this. Overhead resistance to look out for. I went over this in my previous videos as well. 438, 450, 458, 470 is what we're going to be looking at. Jumping into the Symmetry on SPY once again. Very symmetrical move here. Not going to bother going through it again. I just want to touch on one thing here, where I mentioned in my last video that I was not convinced with this retest here. But it looks like that may have been the retest, and my reasoning for that would be, once again, this is a very symmetrical move, so I guess I'll go over it. It's fine. So the blue would be your middle, and then in both red boxes that you see, you have a horizontal line coming across at 380. Come down, break below it, and then top at 418. Same thing over here. Come down, break below it, top at 418. This was slightly lower to retest on the macro here. From that 418 on both red boxes, you come back down to 380, find a perfect bounce off the 380, and then you find upside to that 430 range as we did, breaking out of the ascending triangle. Very, very symmetrical move, perfectly symmetrical move here. So my reasoning now being that this may have been the retest and we might just break this 430 resistance is that just based off the touches on the 430 resistance here, you see 3 touches. 1, 2, close enough. We'll count that as a third touch right there. From that third touch, you retrace one more time, and then you finally break through it. We actually have touched it 3 times now. So that first touch, the initial, 2, and then 3. So it is possible that this was the retest of the ascending triangle here. Just wasn't completely convinced at first, but it looks very good. SPY is resilient as fuck right now, just will not come down. So it looks like it's not going to be coming back down to 418. Expecting to break out of this 430 resistance and start heading towards 450 relatively soon. From that, like I just mentioned, on that third touch, you come back down one more time. It's possible that tomorrow you reject this 429, 430 resistance one more time, come back down to 426, and then find a bounce. And then potentially next week, you could expect to break this 430 resistance. Once we do break that 430 resistance, I just touched on in the previous slide, the overhead resistances to look out for would be 438, which really isn't that strong of a resistance. And then after 438, it's 450. And I mentioned also this move from 450 down to 425 right after we finish the green box here. That's what we're going to be getting. This was 2 days. So it's possible we just break right through this now. Maybe come down to 426 one more time, find a bounce, and then break the 430 resistance. Stop at 438, consolidate for maybe a day or two before getting the rest of the move up to 450. This looks really, really good. SPY is extremely bullish. Very, very bullish looking chart here. Broke both macro patterns, descending broadening wedge and the ascending triangle. Broke both of them and tested on both of them to the upside. Perfectly symmetrical move here. Touch points are legitimately perfect. The next thing we're getting is a move to 450 here, and it's going to be relatively soon and probably be very fast. SPY is extremely bullish. This chart looks amazing. Very important because, as I've mentioned multiple times, both squeezes that we saw in AMC happened while SPY was rallying to the upside, in a bullish position, rallying to the upside. So that's good. That's what we want to see. We're expecting a squeeze on AMC. We want to see SPY ripping to the upside, and it looks good. It's very, very bullish chart here. No complaints whatsoever. That being said, jumping into the sync up in the market, both the descending broadening wedge and the ascending triangle on SPY broke to the upside. That's a macro breakout right there of the ascending triangle. At the same time, AMC has broken its macro pattern to the upside as well, and now it would be in the retest, confirm the retest, and now we have this uptrend going. This looks very, very good. Macro on AMC, nothing has changed. I don't even know why I show this at this point. Legitimately, nothing has changed. Green, red, and blue tracking perfectly. Green, red, and blue here descending. That's the only difference here, is it's descending and taking longer to play out. So the macro is tracking perfectly. Once again, the macro zoomed in. This is my macro perspective up top without bars. Green, red, and blue, same thing. And then down here, this blue box is the blue box of January 2021, leading up to the squeeze. And then this blue box here is tracking that perfectly and will be taking us to our squeeze. And this is just showing the comparison here. Trend line from the top of the blue box down over your tri-peak where you get rejected. And that's where you find your breakout and your retest as well. Same thing over here, trend line right over the tri-peak and then right down to the breakout and the retest in this cycle as well. I mentioned multiple times, first bottom, tri-peak, second bottom, slightly lower low. First bottom, tri-peak, second bottom, slightly lower low. And then you get that uptrend that breaks you out of the macro, and then you get the retest. We're in the retest, confirm the retest, and now we're seeing the upside from that confirmation. It's playing out very slowly. I'm going to get into that, but it looks very bullish. It looks very good. No complaints. There should not be any downside at all. So this is just a different perspective on what I was just showing you. I like the way this looks. I threw it together yesterday. Pretty much just showing the macro here, the green, red, and blue. Compared to the green, red, and blue here, it's the same exact thing, except it's taking longer to play out, and it's descending. Same exact thing. Technically, really not taking longer. The only thing taking longer would be the blue box. The green box actually, on a scale of time, tracked 1-to-1. The red was pretty much 1-to-1 as well. The blue box is actually twice as slow in the current cycle now. Funny enough, when the ape dividend got dropped, which was approximately right here in August, was when the macro started tracking slower. Still tracking perfectly. Nothing changed with the macro. It's just taking longer to play out now. So that is interesting, and I just wanted to touch on that. And it looks good. No complaints there. Jumping into the trend angles, once again, I've gone over this multiple times by now. Blue boxes in both sides. From the top of the blue box straight down, minus 42 degrees, rejecting your tri-peak, and then where you find your breakout and retest. Same thing over here, from the top of the blue box, trend line straight down, rejecting the tri-peak, and where you find your breakout and your retest. Bottom trend angle, 176 degrees, low to low, 178 degrees, low to low. Legitimately, it's perfect. It looks very, very good. Once again, and I'll go over this one more time, that the macro that we are tracking back here leading up to the squeeze in January 2021 was completely flat. This downside here was completely flat, very flat pattern here. We're tracking this perfectly except in a descending fashion here. Same exact thing except descending. So that is why our retest is descending. But it's the same thing. I went over this multiple times as well. This retest from this breakout here, this retest is more or less a W with some chop in the middle. It's a very symmetrical move as well. So this retest is a W with some chop. Very symmetrical move. Same exact thing that we're seeing over here. It's actually starting to form. It's becoming more visible now from this breakout. Same thing. It's a W playing out here, except in a descending fashion because we're descending rather than flat. But this W is really forming now, and it's looking very symmetrical. So this looks very, very good. No complaints here at all. And that's that. So jumping into the breakout and the retest now, I've gone over this as well. A lot of repetitive stuff. I'm just going to keep touching on the same charts, just updated. It's really nothing new. I mentioned this uptrend that we're in is going to take a very, very long time. It's taking a very, very long time. It's very slow, but we are forming higher highs and higher lows, with the exception of that dip today, which we recovered very nicely from. This uptrend is taking a very, very long time to play out, but it looks good. So once again, from your breakout, you actually get rejected. So this green line would be your macro resistance, and then this red line would be the micro resistance. So the macro rejected right here, you form this W pattern that breaks you out, you get the rest of the upside from the breakout, and then you start rejecting this micro resistance that was pinching us into a descending wedge, bouncing off the macro, a few breaks below the macro that reclaimed every time, reject the micro here, break back below the macro, reject the micro, over and over again until we eventually broke out, got our retest, and then that's when the uptrend really started to form here. Looks very good. So this green line, once again, is our macro resistance, and we broke that to the upside, retested it, spent a month in the retest and confirmed the retest. The red line was our micro resistance that was pinching us in a descending wedge, holding us pinned to the macro retest, which we broke to the upside as well and retested, and we're in this uptrend now. So this looks very good. This is a month-long breakout and retest here. That confirmed and is now forming an uptrend, and it looks very, very good. Once again, this breakout is descending, and this breakout in 2021 was flat because the macro was flat and this macro is descending, but it's playing out the exact same way. So the only differences here is that this one was flat, this one's descending. This one played out in 4 days, and this is over a month now, and it's tracking slower, as I mentioned. This blue box that we're in now, the end of the macro, which takes you to your squeeze, is tracking perfectly. It's just tracking very, very slow, but it looks good. So once again, into the retest on the daily, because this looks fucking insane. I love the way this looks. This is your blue box here with your trend line that's rejecting your tri-peak, and then where you find your breakout and your retest here. Very low volume, very barcodey, very boring retest here. This is taking forever, but it looks like the right leg of the W has formed. We're starting to come up on the right leg of the W. Here's your breakout, your first leg of the W, your second leg of the W, and now we're coming back up on this leg of the W. So a nice dragonfly doji on the daily today, very bullish. Hammer yesterday, bullish. Looks good. It looks very good. This move is playing out symmetrically, as I was saying. It's just taking very long. I also said it was going to take a very long time, potentially 2 to 3 weeks for the upside to play out. As we saw, to the downside was it was actually a month. 4 weeks from the breakout to the bottom of the retest was a month. I said that this move is more than likely going to play out symmetrically, and it more than likely will take a long time to get back up there. It will take 2 or 3 weeks. It'll be the same thing we saw to the downside, except to the upside. So a low volume barcodey climb back up to the upside. So it looks very good. Retest confirmed here, and we found a bounce off of it. Very slow uptrend, but it is an uptrend, and that is a confirmation of a retest. This looks very, very good. One more thing I wanted to touch on, and I mentioned this in my last video as well, that tracking on the micro is insanely hard. Insanely hard to do. And the reason for that is, once again, on the left here is January 22nd, 2021. On the right is our current cycle. So this was the retest, the confirmation of the retest right here. This was the bottom of the retest, the confirmation of the retest, January 22nd, 2021, that took you to your squeeze. And this was the confirmation of our retest here. So once again, basically what I'm showing you here is from right here, just zoomed in on a micro level. So this is January 22nd, where you confirm the retest, versus where we are now, where we confirm the retest. Now we have this uptrend. So there actually is an uptrend here, a very slow uptrend, before you get these boom candles back up to a double top. Same exact thing we're seeing now. So zooming into the uptrend now. So this breakdown here, this is where you come back down for the other leg of the W, the flat W of January 22nd. You come all the way back down to the other leg of the W, the bottom that you get, and then you form this very slow uptrend. It's actually not slow. This is a 1 minute chart, by the way. This is a 1 minute chart of January 22nd, the confirmation of the retest, versus a 4 hour chart of our current cycle. It's tracking perfectly. It's just taking a very, very long time, as I've mentioned. So I'll try to explain this the best I can, but really what you have here, this red rectangle that you have here versus this one, is more or less a W. Two lows. The second low is lower. Same exact thing here. You have a W that plays out. The second low is lower. I have horizontal lines drawn across as well. This is kind of hard for me to explain this. I'm just going to try the best I can. From that lower low, you find a bounce back above the white horizontal line, and then reject the red, and then you come back down all the way to your bottom. Same thing here. From the second low of the W, the lower low, you come back above the white, reject the red, and then you come all the way back down to the confirmation of the retest, the absolute low that you see. And then this green box right here, compared to this one, from that low, you bounce up, and you're pretty barcodey flat here for a few minutes in January 2021. This was a few days, so from this low, you bounce up, and you're very flat, barcodey here in this range. Same as we saw here. This took a couple days. This took a couple minutes. So we're tracking very slow, but it is tracking. From there, you find a bounce, and then you start hitting the top of this range here, which is the equivalent to the other side of the low. Same exact thing over here. The wicks are never going to be perfect on this, by the way. Back here, this played out very fast. The wicks are perfect. In every iteration of the macro, the wicks are pretty much perfect. Over here, this is taking forever. The wicks are never going to be perfect. I've mentioned this multiple times. Tracking on the micro, it will look very similar, but there is going to be differences. It's never going to be perfect, but it looks very, very similar. So right here, you get this barcodey sideways range on the orange rectangle. From there, you break out of that, and then you find your top where you found your top on the other side of the low, as we did here. And then you have this double bottom here, which comes down to this blue horizontal line that I have drawn here, which is the bottom of the barcodey orange. So you have this barcodey orange, you break out of that, and then you double bottom here. There's two wicks here, that double bottom on the bottom of this range. And we saw the exact same thing today. That's what today's sell-off in the morning was actually getting our double bottom to the other side of this orange rectangle, getting the double bottom that we saw back here. And then from there we found a bounce, and that was pretty much that. So tomorrow can play out one of two ways, and worst case scenario would be we're flat, pretty much a very flat, boring day once again. And scenario two would be that we get the rest of this move, this pump up to this next range here, which, if my horizontal line that I have drawn here is correct, I think it's pretty close compared to what we saw back here, would be $5.08. So two scenarios. One, we're flat, maybe slightly green, and then the other scenario would be we see this pump up to this range, the $5 range, which it's possible we see that tomorrow. It's possible we're just completely flat, maybe a few cents green, and then next week we would get that pump up to this range. I'm kind of leaning next week, and that would make more sense to me just based off of SPY. So I don't know how likely it is for SPY to really break this 430 tomorrow. It's definitely possible. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. So it really just depends. I mean, the two ways this goes is SPY rejects the 429 and then comes back down to 426, the bottom of the horizontal channel here. That would be your Friday for SPY. You come back down to the 426 area one more time, maybe 427. And you're pretty flat in this range again one more day. In that case, AMC would be relatively flat, maybe a few cents green. The other scenario is SPY just breaks right out of this 430 range and starts climbing to that 438 resistance. In that case, I would not be surprised to see $5 for AMC tomorrow. Regardless, the predictions on a daily basis don't really mean much. As I just said, tracking on the micro is very difficult to do, especially when you're comparing a 1 minute chart to a 4-hour chart. It's playing out the exact same way. It's just taking a lot longer. So that being said, that's pretty much the video. I have absolutely zero complaints. It looks amazing. Very, very bullish. There's nothing bearish about AMC at all. The bottom is in. We're not seeing any more downside on AMC. And SPY is very bullish. The market is bullish in general. The whole market's about to squeeze. It's not just AMC. It's the whole meme basket. SPY, blue chips. The whole market's about to squeeze. The market is extremely bullish right now. SPY is ripping to the upside, and AMC is at the end of its macro, broke out of the macro and just confirmed the retest, and has now found an uptrend from that confirmation of the retest as shown here. So no complaints. It's just taking a long time. As you know, I said this multiple times that this uptrend back up to the double top at 650, which would be the equivalent of this, the rest of this move, before we get the fractal break and we squeeze, that uptrend back to the double top is going to take some time. I mentioned that multiple times. So again, you know, the daily, I'm just going to call it estimates. You know, I can't. My projections on a daily basis on a micro comparing a 4-hour chart to a 1-hour chart is never going to be fucking perfect. It doesn't matter. The macro perspective is what matters. And on the macro, and I mentioned this multiple times, we played out all of the green, obviously, all of the red, and now we're in the blue. We got the first bottom, we got the tri-peak, we got the second bottom with the lower low, we got the uptrend that broke you out, and we got the retest. And that's shown here as well with the trend angles. The trend angles are perfect. They're identical. Minus 42 degrees on both sides. 176 degrees versus 178. So first bottom, tri-peak. Second bottom with a lower low. Your uptrend that breaks you out of the macro, the retest. First bottom, tri-peak. Second bottom, slightly lower low. The uptrend that breaks you out of the macro. And then the retest. So on the macro, we know where we are. On the micro, I have a pretty good idea where we are, but I'm never going to be perfect. Tracking this shit on the micro, comparing a 4-hour chart to a 1-hour chart. It's playing out the same way, it's just taking a lot longer. So with that being said, that's the video. One of two things for tomorrow. Either SPY is sideways in the range of 426 to 429 again. Pretty boring day for SPY. In that case, AMC would be relatively flat, maybe a few cents green, maybe dead flat. The other scenario would be SPY breaks that 430 resistance and starts climbing towards that 438. In that case, I would not be surprised to see AMC break into that $5 range once again. So really, those are the two scenarios for tomorrow. I'm not too pressed about that. Next week looks very promising, though. Next week, we should start seeing this curl back up for real. This uptrend is playing out very slow, but we should at least see $5 next week, if not tomorrow. So there's no downside to look out for. There's nothing you have to be worried about, anything crazy to the downside. It's just a matter of how fast or slow this uptrend is going to play out. Mentioned multiple times, it's going to take some time. So with that being said, that is the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.